After a decade caring for her paralyzed husband, she discovered an incredible gift one night. Sarah rummaged through the attic with shaky hands, cold settling deep into her bones as she pulled away the dust from forgotten memories. For 10 long years, she had devoted her life to Jake, her husband, a war hero who once danced across stages of life with laughter and strength. Now, the silence in their modest bungalow muffled their once vibrant love, reducing it to whispers of what could have been. Her heart felt heavy, like a weight too great to bear. Each creak of the floorboards echoed loneliness, mirrored only by the pitying glances she received at the diner. That night, desperate to escape the emotional fog, Sarah opened a tattered box that conspired against her will to stay closed. Her breath hitched. Inside lay a collection of heartfelt letters from Jake, ink-smudged but vibrant with youthful dreams. With every word, it was as if Jake was there, reminding her of a future they once envisioned, a future that now felt exquisitely out of reach. The flicker of hope ignited within her, urging Sarah to reclaim not just their past, but the possibility of reconciliation that whispered like a breeze. As she read, memories washed over her. She could almost hear Jake's laughter, his deep voice filled with dreams of a family, travel, and adventure. The bittersweet realization struck that their lives had become a cycle of care and isolation, channeling the vibrant essence of love into mere survival. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Fueled by the letters, Sarah crafted a plan, crafting flyers for a fundraiser that would secure therapy for Jake. She poured her heart into each detail, dreaming of a night that could awaken their community's heart. But shadows loomed as whispers of judgment and misunderstanding seeped through the very fabric of her small town. Navigating the line between loyalty and personal fulfillment, she faced the world with a tight chest, each disapproving look weighing heavily on her spirit. The night of the event arrived, frigid air biting at her cheeks as the townsfolk filled the room. Excitement mixed with dread. Conversations simmered with tension, half-hearted smiles barely hiding the undercurrents of prejudice. Just when Sarah began to lose hope, something magical happened. Jake's hidden talent for art shone through. His paintings, vibrant strokes on canvas, erupted like fireworks against the discontent, stirring life into tired hearts. Instead of a fundraiser, it became a celebration of resilience and vulnerability. The crowd began to transform, caught up in the emotions his art evoked. Laughter mixed with tears, joy just on the horizon. Yet, in the thick of the celebration, a harsh voice emerged from a familiar face, igniting an old division that threatened to shatter the very moment they had built. Could Sarah's determination help bridge the rift and spark redemption and recognition for Jake's talent? Or would the struggles they face spiral into deeper divides, rendering their hopes yet another casualty of misunderstanding? As her heart raced, she felt the pull of community, love, and the urgent hope that loomed just out of reach. A tense silence fell over the room as Mark, the self-appointed leader of the town, stood tall before the crowd. His voice, thick with disdain, cut through the warmth that had begun to spread. Doesn't anyone remember who Jake used to be? A poster child for the glossy magazines. Now he is just a sad reminder of what happens when life spirals out of control. He spat, eyes darting toward Sarah with a venomous glint. Gas echoed like daggers cutting through the atmosphere, and Sarah felt the color drain from her face. All her efforts seemed to hang by a thread. She gathered the community in hopes to celebrate, to bring them together, but now the contrast was stark. Before her stood the darkness that had poked at the edges of her hope for far too long. Taking a deep breath, Sarah pushed against the fear wrapping around her heart. She stepped forward, feeling vulnerable yet defiant. "This isn't just about Jake's paintings," she declared, urgency weaving through her words. "It's about the courage to find beauty in our brokenness, to see art where others see scars. Jake may not be what he was, but he still has so much to offer. So many of us do." The murmur swelled and fell like waves, some nodding slowly as if awakening from a deep slumber. But others shifted uncomfortably, unable to accept change so swiftly. Jake's gaze, slightly unfocused yet filled with watching love, grounded her. He had always believed in her voice even when she faltered. "Look at these pieces. Look at him," Sarah continued, gesturing toward Jake's vibrant works draped around the walls. She could feel every set of eyes turning toward Jake, looking at him not just as a reminder of loss, but as a beacon of resilience. "Each stroke is a testament to survival. It's a story of new beginnings. Why can't we celebrate that?" Mark scoffed, but Sarah glimpsed a few townsfolk shifting their stance, their faces softening, lost in thought. Even in the corner, she could see the wall of judgment beginning to crack. Hope fluttered within her, trying to take wing. Before she could say more, a voice chimed in from the back of the room, "But what does it mean for us to engage with him now?" It was a voice she hadn't heard, trembling but insistent. The crowd turned in curiosity. Her heart leapt. "We embrace him not just for who he was, but for who he is now. We lift each other up. We rebuild. That is what community is built on," Sarah urged, fighting back a wave of emotion. Then, from behind, Jake's wheelchair creaked as he turned to face the audience. With trembling hands, he reached for the nearest painting, a vibrant sunset, drenched in warm oranges and deep purples. This is my truth," he finally spoke, his voice low yet steady. "What I see today in this room isn't just shadows, it's color, potential, and life." The room held its breath, realization washing over them. In that moment, walls began to crumble, and emotions bubbled forth. Some wiped away tears, others exchanged glances rife with newfound understanding. But just as the warmth spread, another voice pierced through, one full of old grudges, ready to claim the night. "But what about the past? How can we forget?" Sarah's heart sank. It was clear the night had sparked a transformation, yet the deeper divisions still loomed like specters. She shivered, torn between hope and dread. The dream of unity danced tantalizingly close, but could it truly survive the lingering shadows? With a breath steadied by resolve, she faced the crowd again. "Maybe we can change the past, but we can shape the future together. Let us choose to lift each other and find our way into the light." As the crowd shifted restlessly, Sarah's nerves surged heavily. Would they embrace this change, or would old resentments drown out the flicker of hope? The air thickened with anticipation, holding on to resolution, while uncertainty gnawed at the edges of their burgeoning dreams. What would it take to truly break the chains of judgment and pave a path toward understanding? Sarah braced herself for the inevitable clash of convictions, her heart racing with the urgency of change swirling just out of sight. A thick silence blanketed the room as the weight of unresolved history hovered. Sarah felt the chill of Mark's words echoing in her ears, the question of how can we forget, hanging ominously over her. This crowd, her community, was on the precipice. It was one thing to rally them with hope, but what lay beneath the surface was far more complicated. Suddenly, a quiet voice broke the tension. "But it's not just about forgetting," it was May, an older woman with gently wrinkled skin, who had watched the town shift over the years. She stood, her hands clasped in front of her like a fragile bird. "It's about learning. It's about understanding that pain has shaped us all." A ripple of murmurs followed, the crowd reflecting on her words. It wasn't just about Jake or Sarah, it was a shared experience of hurt that caught them all. Yes. Sarah interjected, encouraged by May's perspective. We can't erase what happened. But we can choose to let it inspire us instead of divide us. We can heal together. Jake turned to face Sarah, his eyes brightening as he sensed the tide beginning to shift. Art, he said softly, is not a celebration of perfection. It's a reflection of our journeys, the highs and the lows. As the weight of his words settled, a man named David, someone who had stood in the shadows of judgment for so long, finally raised his hand, his voice quivering. I've always seen Jake for his mistakes, maybe I just need to look deeper. The crowd shifted, and collective breaths were held as they began the dance of realization. Old grudges, like ghosts, started to dissipate in the light of understanding. It wasn't just Jake, it was each of them, holding their own burdens, their scars, and their fears. Can we really embrace our new truths? Someone questioned, the nervousness palpable in the air. We can try. Sarah replied, her voice imbued with a fierce tenderness. Life doesn't come with guarantees. But I believe that love and support make the broken pieces whole. Just look at each other. Voices grew louder in agreement, and the room began to hum with energy, weaving a tapestry of hope. They were stepping closer, searching for the courage to confront the past while daring to dream of a future together. In the back, Mark's face twisted with incredulity. This is nonsense. You can't just overlook everything, it's not that simple. It's not, May replied, her voice steady. But that doesn't mean we can try. If we only focus on the past, we'll drown in our own darkness. And I refuse to let this community sink. A hushed tension enveloped Mark. He stood there, searching the faces in front of him, seeing their determination. He had always been the stoic captain steering their ship, but the wind had shifted, and he was starting to feel it. Maybe, he said, his voice trailing off, maybe we could find something in the middle. A way to honor who we were and who we can become. A wave of quiet approval washed over the crowd. It wasn't a complete surrender from Mark, but something began to thaw in his heart, a space for conversation rather than conflict. Jake, who had been quietly observing, took a deep breath. I can't help everyone, but I can share my truth. And maybe that can inspire others to share theirs. A profound quietness settled in. Sarah felt the flicker of hope igniting, feeling lighter. Together, this community was on the edge of transformation. Could they forge something new? But in that moment of potential, Sarah caught a glimpse of lingering doubt in Mark's eyes. What would happen if the past emerged again to haunt them? Could they face it again? The night was alive with unspoken possibilities, and the questions that lingered were heavy. As she scanned the faces of those she loved, Sarah wondered if they would summon the strength to truly confront their fears or if they would allow the past to pull them back into the darkness. What awaited them as they stepped boldly into the unknown? The room held a fragile energy, the tension shifting like grains of sand beneath their feet. Sarah could see the spark of courage lighting up the faces around her, but the air still felt thick with uncertainty. Would they truly be able to step into the light together? The possibility of failure loomed just as large as the hope for transformation. Jake's voice broke through the silence once more. What if we start by sharing stories? Let us find the moments where we felt lost, and the moments when we found our way back. Tentatively, May nodded, her eyes reflecting a mix of nostalgia and sorrow. I remember a winter years ago, she said slowly. A storm trapped us all inside. And instead of fighting, we came together. We not only survived, we began to appreciate the warmth of each other's spirit. David leaned in, his heart racing. Isn't that the point? We built walls to shield ourselves from pain, but maybe those walls keep out love too. We have to break them down, right? A murmur of agreement swept through the crowd, a current of shared understanding igniting the air. It starts with vulnerability, Sarah encouraged, feeling the weight of their history pressing against her heart. If we can show up as we are broken pieces and all, then maybe we can really begin to heal. Mark stood still, his brow furrowed. He was the anchor for so long, the one keeping everyone steady. But now, as he listened, he felt the tide of change pulling at him. Maybe the stories we're avoiding, he started, searching for the right words, are the tales that bind us together. We need to face them, even if it scares us. Sarah's heart raced. This was the opening she had hoped for, the chance to transform pain into power. Let us create a space for honesty. A place where we can share not just the bright moments but the darker ones too. Tentatively, people began to share. Jake spoke of his past decisions, the mistakes etched into his soul, while David revealed his struggle to accept the person he once shunned. Each story echoed in the room, weaving connections that had long been severed. Laughter mixed with tears as memories emerged, thick and heavy, but surrounded by the warmth of newfound understanding. When Sarah shared her own tale of loss and resilience, she watched as eyes flickered with recognition. Each revelation felt like a step toward freedom, a light breaking through the fog. And then, suddenly, it happened. A young girl, one she had never noticed before, in the back of the room stood up with trembling hands. I want to share too, she whispered, her voice quaking with uncertainty. I'm scared, but I've been carrying something for so long. Everyone turned to her, the air stilling with anticipation. Mark's features softened, overwhelmed by her courage, and Sarah held her breath, heart racing. As the girl took a deep breath to speak, time seemed to stretch. What would this young soul reveal? What weight was she about to lift off her own shoulders? The crowd leaned in, the collective heartbeat of the community pulsing louder. Whatever she was about to say might bridge more gaps, pull more threads, and keep the moment alive with possibility. But just as she opened her mouth, a loud crash echoed from the street outside, breaking the fragile moment and sending everyone's head snapping toward the source of the noise. What just shattered? Was it the past creeping back again, or a sign that the future was about to burst forth in unexpected ways? The air crackled with uncertainty as Sarah's gaze darted toward Mark. Would they still stand together in solidarity, or would doubt pull them apart once more? The girl's moment was shattered like glass, and the room buzzed with confusion. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, as if propelled by instinct, Mark took a step toward the window, peering into the night. The light from street lamps cast eerie shadows, making the world outside feel both close and distant. Is everyone okay? He called, worry creeping into his voice. Sarah felt the heat of anxiety rise within her. It was as if the crash had underlined their fears, amplifying the uncertainty of what lay ahead. We need to focus, she urged. Let us not lose this moment. Jake stood next to Mark, eyes scanning the street. A car accident, maybe. It sounded serious, he said, returning his gaze to the group. But we're here for each other right now. This isn't the end. The girl's trembling hands fell to her sides, but now there was an ember of resolve in her determined gaze. Taking a breath, she spoke again, the earlier quiver replaced by a fragile strength. I'm not sure what the crash means, but I felt broken for so long, she began. Like I'm invisible, wandering around in a dark shadow, lost. The words felt heavy, yet they resonated. Each person in the room wrapped their attention around her, anchoring her as she let the barriers tumble down. I keep waiting for someone to notice me, she continued, her eyes glistening. But I want to matter, to finally be seen. As she spoke, Sarah sensed the emotional weight surrounding them, evoking the stories they had shared earlier. You matter, Sarah interjected softly, her heart in sync with the girl's vulnerability. Every voice here is important, and I see you. We all do. The girl looked around, a flicker of hope igniting in her chest. Those present nodded, affirming Sarah's words with their sincerity. It was a moment of connection that went deeper than simple acknowledgement. This was about recognition and an invitation to be authentic. Mark returned to his place, looking around at the group. We can change the past, but we can choose how to respond to what happens next. Let us band together, lean into our fears, and support one another through this. As he spoke, the room shifted. People began to look each other in the eye, the earlier camaraderie returning. The crash outside faded into the background. It was just noise now, an inconsequential distraction in the face of their shared truths. Let me share, a voice emerged from the crowd. It was David again, pressed with the urgency of the moment. Listen, my story isn't easy, neither is May's or anyone's. But what I learned is that even brokenness can lead to beauty. We all have times where we falter. And just like that, they opened the floodgates. Each voice stacked atop the other, weaving a tapestry of experience and pain, hope and understanding. Moments flickered past, raw and unfiltered. They were all uniquely human, dancing on the razor's edge of vulnerability. As Sarah listened, glimmers of laughter mixed with tears danced through the group, each story a brushstroke against the grey canvas of their lives. The air pulsed with something electric, a renewed sense of purpose igniting. But then, the sharp sound of sirens screamed in the distance, pulling their focus back to reality. Was that trouble coming their way or merely a side effect of the night's chaos? In that moment, Sarah realized their discussion wasn't just an exercise in sharing pain, it was about strengthening their bonds for whatever awaited outside those doors. Underneath it all, they were building something magnificent together: courage, love, community. Their future hung in the air, waiting for them to seize it. But as the sirens drew closer, a thought flickered in her mind. Would they be ready to face whatever lay beyond, or would fear weave its way back, shunning their newfound hope? The uncertainty loomed as they all faced the door, hearts pounding, waiting. What would greet them? What challenges lay ahead? The sirens echoed through the night, relentless and haunting. Each wailing cry felt like a pull on their collective heart, squeezing the moment they had just built. Sarah glanced at each person in the room, their faces reflecting a mix of hope and dread. Would they still stand together when the dust settled? Maybe we should see what is happening outside, Mark suggested, though his voice held a tremor. There was a palpable tension in the air, an unspoken question hanging between them: was it safe to seek the truth? Jake shook his head, his brow knitted in thought. What if it's something worse? We don't know what we're dealing with yet. The girl who had shared her feelings earlier, now held her breath, clearly torn between her urge to discover the reality outside and the fear of what it might do to the sanctuary they had created within these walls. But we need to know, she whispered, her courage flickering like a candle flame. Then let us go together, Sarah said, stepping forward, her heart racing. Whatever it is, we face it as a group. There was strength in the idea, an affirmation of their new bond. They wouldn't let fear dictate their actions any longer. Mark nodded, taking charge. Okay, then. On 3. 1, 2, 3. With that, they all moved toward the door, hands brushing against one another, united in their resolve. As Mark swung the door open, a rush of cold air swept in, crashing against their warmth. The night sky was heavy with swirling clouds, and the faint glow of street lamps cast long shadows across the pavement. The sounds of distant chatter mingled with the sirens now, creating an odd symphony of chaos. What do we see? Jake asked, squinting into the dim light. Just then, the headlights of an ambulance sliced through the darkness, illuminating figures moving swiftly, paramedics, gesturing and directing traffic. Sarah's heart sank for a moment, but she stilled herself. We have to find out what happened. With a deep breath, she led the way forward, feeling the weight of the group on her shoulders, trusting they would follow. As they approached the scene, the harsh lights of the ambulance flickered against the eerie shadows of the surroundings. An overturned vehicle lay on its side, the crumpled metal glistening under the glow. Two paramedics worked frantically while another knelt beside a figure at the edge of the street. "Is anyone hurt?" Sarah called, her voice cutting through the tension. The anxiety surged back. Would they hear news that would crush their newfound camaraderie? One of the paramedics turned toward them, white knuckles gripping the stretcher. "We are handling it. Please stand back." His voice was firm but urgent, igniting a flicker of panic within Sarah. Seconds stretched into eternity as they waited, breathing in the electricity of uncertainty. The girl beside Sarah steadied herself, glancing sideways at her, their eyes locking for a moment, a connection forged in shared fear. Then they heard it. Muffled cries slipped through the chaos, pulling at their hearts. It wasn't just sound, it was a call for help, raw and unfiltered. The girl's face paled, but then steeled again, colors vibrant in her determination. "We can't just leave them," she exclaimed, her voice rising above the din. "That's right," David added, stepping forward, emboldened. "We're not bystanders. We can do something." Sarah's resolve ignited once more. They weren't just there to view the tragedy, they could offer comfort, support, be a shield. But was that bravery or madness? The line felt slim. As if reading her mind, Mark caught her eye, beckoning her to make a choice. In that critical moment, they all stood on the brink of action, hearts pounding. What would they choose? And just then, from the back of the crowd, someone shouted their name. A familiar face emerged from the shadows, but it bore a news that could change everything. Would the evening take a turn that could challenge the act of courage they were about to undertake? The figure stepped closer, the dim light revealing the familiar features of Sarah's older brother, Mike. He looked disheveled, his face etched with worry. "Sarah. I didn't know where to find you." He gasped, panting slightly as he pushed through the crowd. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her heart skipping. There was something urgent in his eyes, something that made her stomach twist. Before he could answer, the paramedic scowled. "Please, step back. We're trying to do our jobs here." Mike ignored him, urgency overriding any caution. "It's about Mom," he blurted out, pulling Sarah aside. "You need to come with me, now." "Why? What happened?" Panic began to bubble within Sarah as she shot a glance back at her friends, whose brows were furrowed in confusion. "Just trust me, please," Mike pleaded, desperation lacing his voice. The sirens wailed louder now, mirroring the pounding in her chest. Her commitment to the group warred with her instinct for family. "I can't just leave them," she gestured back, where Mark, Jake, David, and the girl who still hadn't shared her name were watching with a mix of concern and determination. "They can handle it," Mike insisted, his eyes pleading. "It's serious, Sarah. Mom's condition has worsened." Breath caught in her throat, the weight of his words crashed over her like a wave. Memories flickered at the edge of her mind, hospital visits, whispered conversations about prognosis and hope. "Is she?" "No, she is still alive, but we need to get her to the hospital, and fast." Every part of her wanted to bolt to her mother's side, but the scene behind her was chaotic. The screams echoed and the cries for help tugged at her heart. "But they need us, too," she said, emotion thickening her voice. "If we can help here, we can't be two places at once." Mike snapped, his frustration leaking into panic. "I'm scared, Sarah. I can't do this alone. You're needed." The girl, who now stood close enough to hear their exchange, stepped forward. "Sarah, I understand. We've got this. Just go." Her eyes held a flicker of strength and anchor in the storm of fear and confusion. Mark nodded, offering her a reassuring look. We'll be fine. We have to trust that we can do something here. You go be with your family. As the chaos swirled around them, Sarah felt the band of her friends holding her up. The thought of leaving them stung. They'd come together in this moment of crisis, yet another part of her ached to protect her mother. They all deserved comfort in the face of tragedy. Taking a deep breath, she stepped away, her heart torn. Okay, I'll be back as soon as I can. With one last glance at her friends, Sarah followed Mike, her heart racing. The night felt heavier with each step, an unexpected weight that pushed her to question everything. Would she arrive in time? And what if the situation with her mom spiraled out of control while she turned her back on those in need? As they reached the car, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She pulled it out to check, eyes widening in disbelief. The message read, "Something is happening, it's connected to the accident." Fear washed over her. What had she just walked away from? Mike noticed her expression and frowned. What is it? She didn't answer, staring at the screen. The implications of the words swirled in her mind. Now she had to decide, could she handle not just her family's emergency but the chaos of the night ahead? What darkness was unfolding that linked the two events? And who else would be impacted by their choices? The night had transformed, and so had she, yet a sense of urgency hung in the air, pushing her toward an uncertain future. The car ride felt endless, the city lights streaking past, mirroring the racing thoughts in Sarah's mind. The sirens faded as they pulled away from the chaos, but the weight of uncertainty only deepened. Mike's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly, knuckles white from tension. You okay? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I just can't shake this feeling. Sarah replied, staring out of the window. What if I'm making a mistake? What if stop it, he interrupted, his tone firm but gentle. You are not making a mistake. We need to focus on Mom, not on the what-ifs. Let us just get there. She wanted to believe him. Deep down, the fear gnawed at her. The message loomed in her mind, a shadow that refused to fade. What could be happening that tied everything together? As they approached the hospital, the familiarity of it washed over Sarah, flooding her with memories. Dark hallways, sterile smells, and the distant sounds of beeping machines. Dread settled in her stomach, a cold knot of anxiety. They parked hurriedly and sprinted toward the entrance, the fluorescent lights stark and blinding. Glaring signs pointed the way and, seconds later, they were at the reception desk. Excuse me, Mike said, breathless, we're looking for Barbara Dawson. She was brought in just a bit ago. The nurse's expression shifted to one of sympathy. I'm afraid you'll need to wait for updates. She is being examined right now. His shoulders sank, looking lost. Sarah stepped closer, grabbing his arm for support. The nurse, sensing their worry, added, Why don't you take a seat? I'll let you know as soon as I have more information. They sat in the waiting area, surrounded by strangers lost in their own anxieties. Each tick of the clock felt like a heartbeat in the silence, heavy and filled with unspoken fears. Mike drummed his fingers against his knee, biting his lip. What if he started, but Sarah cut him off. Let us not go there. Let us just wait for news. He nodded, but didn't he look convinced? After what felt like an eternity, a doctor approached, his face serious yet kind. Family of Barbara Dawson. Both jumped to their feet. Mike's voice wavered, Is she okay? She is stable for now, the doctor replied. But her condition is critical. She had a heart attack, and we are monitoring her closely. We'll need to run more tests. The words struck Sarah like a blow. What does that mean? She is going to be okay? We can't say for certain yet, the doctor said, lowering his gaze. But we're doing everything we can. A lump formed in Sarah's throat. All those years spent fighting and hoping with her mom seemed to flash before her eyes. The laughter during holiday dinners, the disagreements over teenage angst, the countless sacrifices made. Her heart ached with the weight of it all. Just then, her phone buzzed again. Heart racing, she glanced at the screen. Another message from the unknown number: "You need to come back. It's not over." A chill shot down her spine. "Sarah." Mike's voice broke her trance. "What is it?" She hesitated, the fear clawing at her insides. What did it all mean? Did it connect to what just happened and the accident? The answers felt so far away, and as they sat there, so many questions filled the air, suffocating. What could she do now? And who was behind the messages? The night had twisted into something far more unsettling than she ever imagined. Would she be strong enough to face everything ahead, or would she collapse under the pressure? The weight of uncertainty hung thick in the air, a fog that wrapped around Sarah and Mike as they waited for more news. The hospital buzzed with life, distant conversations, and the rhythmic beeping of machines creating a backdrop that felt almost surreal against their anxiety. With each minute that passed, hope wavered like a flame in the wind. "Do you think she knows?" Mike finally asked, a tremor in his voice. "Knows what?" Sarah turned to him, brow furrowed. "About everything." His eyes searched hers, filled with a mixture of fear and pain. "The secret, the doctors, all of it." A sharp breath caught in Sarah's throat. The possible reality cracked open like an egg, spilling out a mix of dread and confusion. "I don't even know what we're talking about, Mike." "What secret?" He hesitated, staring blankly at the floor. "What if it's something she didn't want us to know? What if we're too late?" A heavy silence fell between them, suffocating. The thought nagged at Sarah's mind, flickering like an unwelcome light. Had the family ever truly been whole, or had they lived in shadows, hiding pain and truth? Just then, the nurse from earlier returned, her face cautious yet soft. "There's been an update. You can see her now, but please just for a few minutes." The urgency washed over them. They exchanged one last glance, both seeking reassurance, but finding only urgent determination. As they followed the nurse down the corridor, each step felt like an echo, every heartbeat a reminder of what hung in the balance. When they entered the room, Barbara lay frail and pale against the stark white sheets, so different from the vibrant woman they knew. For a moment, dread twisted in Sarah's gut, but then she saw a flicker in Barbara's eyes as they locked onto hers. "Mom," Sarah breathed, moving close enough to feel the warmth of the light above. "We're here." "Sarah." "Mike?" Barbara's voice was weak, barely audible, but the love behind it surged through the room. "What happened?" Sarah asked, her voice tremulous. "Are you okay?" Barbara hesitated, the shadows of her past crossing her face, and Sarah realized that whatever her mother was about to say could shift the very foundation of their lives. I need to tell you something," Barbara said slowly, gathering her strength. "There are things I didn't tell you, about your dad, and about why I pushed you two away." Mike's expression darkened, his fists clenched at his sides. "Mom, what do you mean?" Barbara's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "It's about the decisions we made as a family. There are things that happened before the accident." As those words hung in the air, Sarah felt her heart race. The past was about to collide with the present in a way she could never have prepared for. The messages, the secrets, everything seemed tangled in the web of uncertainty. "Mom, please." Sarah pleaded, sensing the urgency of their moment together. But before anything more could be said, the alarm suddenly blared, piercing through their fragile bubble. Medical staff rushed into the room, and Sarah's heart lurched with fear. What was happening? In the chaos, her phone buzzed again, and she glanced down, her breath hitching in her throat. The familiar unknown number flashed on the screen. You need to know the truth. It's all connected. Fear and desperation swirled together inside her. The truth was so close, yet it felt out of reach, like a dream slipping into shadows. Would the unraveling of their family's hidden past provide the answers they sought? Or would it lead them deeper into despair as the night thickened around them? Chaos erupted as the alarms blared, a frantic symphony that drowned out Sarah's racing heart. Medical staff hurried in, faces etched with urgency. She felt Mike's hand grip hers tightly, their fear intermingling. The world around them blurred in a whirlwind of white coats and shouts. "Mom!" Sarah cried, her voice getting lost in the commotion. She felt utterly powerless, emotions crashing over her like waves. They were so close to uncovering the truth, yet everything threatened to spiral away. One nurse held a hand up, commanding the chaos. Everyone stepped back. Her firm tone pierced through the din, yet the tension in the air tightened like a noose. "Is she okay?" Mike's voice trembled, but the nurse just nodded toward the doctor, gesturing him to lead. Dr. Thompson, an older physician with a reassuring demeanor, approached. "Please, I need you to wait outside for just a moment. We're going to do everything we can." Sarah's heart twisted, torn between the need to stay and the orders of the medical staff. The chaos outside the room faded as she locked eyes with her mother, whose gaze radiated a mix of fear and love. "Sarah, listen." Barbara's voice strained against the tumult, but the urgency in her eyes burned bright, anchoring Sarah's heart. "I hope you can forgive me for everything." "Mom, just hold on." Sarah's throat was tight with tears, and fear clawed at her insides. But those words echoed in her mind, "Forgive me." What did that mean? What secrets were locked behind Barbara's pain? As they were ushered out, Sarah clung to Mike's arm, her heart thundering with anxiety. They waited in the hallway, staring down at the sterile tiles. Both knew nothing would ever be the same again. In the silence, thick with uncertainty, Mike finally broke. What did she mean by everything? His voice was raw with emotion. "There are things we don't know, things I thought we'd put behind us. Maybe she didn't want us to carry the weight," Sarah replied, grasping at the pieces of understanding that danced just out of reach. "But if she is reaching out now, maybe we should let her tell us. Maybe it's time we face those shadows." But Mike shook his head. "These aren't just shadows, Sarah. They are ghosts, things buried so deep they're still affecting us." "How can we?" Before he could finish, the door opened, and Dr. Thompson stepped out, his face grave. "Barbara is stable, but she needs to rest. We managed to stabilize her present condition, but we have to run more tests." A wave of relief mingled with the fear still lingering in the pit of Sarah's stomach. "Can we see her now?" she asked, hoping to cling on to that flicker of hope. "Yes. But keep it brief. She is going to need you both more than ever." The doctor stepped aside, ushering them back into the room. As they entered, the atmosphere shifted. The rattle of machines hummed softly, and Barbara lay there, frail yet there a pulse of life that seemed fragile yet resilient. "Mom." Sarah's voice wobbled, rushing to her side, and Mike followed, his presence a solid support. "What do you need to tell us?" Barbara shifted, eyes glistening. "I didn't want you to know the darkness we carried as a family. The mistakes, the secrets. I believed you should only experience love, not the pain." Almost instinctively, Sarah took her mother's hand. "But we need to know the truth now. Just tell us. We can face it together." Barbara took a deep breath, her voice shaky. "Your father was deeply troubled. I shielded you both from his struggles, but it cost our bond. I thought I could protect you two from it all, but I didn't realize I needed to let you in. I pushed you away just when we needed each other the most." The words sank in, the weight of them crashing through the walls they had put up. "Mom, we're here now," Sarah urged gently, squeezing her hand, fighting through the emotions rising. "Whatever the truth is, we can handle it. We're stronger together." Barbara's gaze flickered with something unfathomable but so real, the truth, aching and raw. "Your father, I tried to save him, but he was so lost. I couldn't connect. I feared if you knew it would shatter you," she whispered, pain cracking through her softened voice. "I now see that my love for you both means opening up instead of closing off." As her mother's words wove themselves into the room, Sarah and Mike exchanged a glance filled with understanding. Secrets had plagued their relationship, there was a darkness that hung over them, but now it felt like a long-lost connection was emerging, fragile yet real. "Then let us face it together," Mike said softly. "No more pushed away. No more secrets." But just then, Sarah's phone buzzed again. Her heart raced at the thought of unfolding revelations. "Who?" Mike started, catching the trailing suspense. "It's the unknown number again," Sarah whispered, feeling a chill run through her. Her fingers tingled, tapping open the message. "The truth can set you free. But this is just the beginning." This time fear didn't paralyze her, it ignited something deep inside. Sarah looked at Mike, determination blazing in her eyes. "Whatever is happening, we'll face it. Together." "What about the community, the accident?" "We can't just walk away. We can face it all, Mike. We owe it to each other." As they locked their arms together, a new resolve emerged. Even with shadows looming, the love they shared ignited a spark of courage. And as they braced for whatever awaited them outside those hospital doors, they knew they stood stronger than the darkness that lingered and ready to turn the pages of their story into something new. The night had unraveled into chaos, but they were finally united, ready to unveil the truth, and with that, a new hope for their future. Now was the time for courage and for change, they wouldn't turn back. Together, they would write a new chapter, their chapter. Sarah took a deep breath as they stepped through the exit, the outside world beckoning with the weight of both uncertainty and possibility hanging thick in the air. Then, she uttered the words that finally resonated. "Let us go home." And with that, they all stepped out, though the shadows still built uneasy walls around them. They chose togetherness, the embrace of truth over fear, the bond of love above all else. Now was the chance for them to shine. It was time to face not just the truths of the past, but to claim an improvised future together. Sarah couldn't help but smile through the uncertainty. Their journey was just beginning. And you don't want to miss the next chapter of this inspiring journey. So, if you believe in transformation and hope, subscribe immediately to this channel. You need to be a part of the next exclusive stories that could change your perspective. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Your support truly makes a difference. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible transformation and face their own truths. Together, we rise.